Man, yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So cool.
I appreciate you jumping on. Today we have Nik Reeds from Nik Nat Entertainment. And where are you based out of, Nick? I know you're in Australia, right?
Correct. Yeah, at the Gold Coast, which is a beautiful part of the world. It's where I choose to live in Australia. I don't live here because I have to. I live here because I want to. It's really good. It's one of the entertainment, I guess, and wedding meccas of the Gold Coast or of Australia as well. There's a lot of people fly in from not only interstate or all around Australia, but from all around the world. We get people flying to the Gold Coast to have their weddings. Usually when people think of Australia, it's typically either Sydney or the Gold Coast.
Let me ask you this, because I'm looking at your website and it looks really freaking clean. How long ago did you create Nik Nat Entertainment?
Oh, geez. We've been going since, I think, 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, so quite a while now. We've been cracking on for quite a bit of time now.
And you are also a musical performer too, right? So you DJ and then you also play guitar.
Yes, yeah, and also yeah, a little bit of magic as well, a bit of close-up magic. So.
Since you began Nik Nat Entertainment, what have been some of the most valuable avenues as far as you have found for like marketing your business, getting your business out there, getting more events, stuff like that?
Yeah, good question. In fact, I was thinking about this a lot last night. What I'd love to share with people is, I guess, my ideas, and because this is kind of a new adventure for you as well, Tony. You've only just started this, haven't you? I thought it'd be really cool to share with people my ideas on marketing and give some foundational stuff that you build on top of, because there's no point going into the advanced side of marketing and advertising and all that unless you've got a good foundation to build on. So I thought I'd share some of that foundational stuff, if that's okay, Tony.
Yes, please.
Sure. So feel free to interject anytime you want with any questions too, of course. So, hey, it's your show, not mine.
It's our show.
It's our show. This one, fantastic. So you always need to start with questions if you want an answer. And those questions are who, what, why, where, how, and when. Now, thinking about all those questions, I discovered that probably 4 out of the 6 of those are marketing questions, not advertising questions. And people get confused about advertising and marketing. There is a massive overlap. My definition of marketing is almost the background work. Marketing doesn't cost you anything other than time and thinking. Advertising is what costs you. Advertising is kind of more the active side of marketing. Marketing is a lot of the thinking about what it is that you're actually doing. So those 6 questions, who is a marketing question, I believe. What, I believe, is a marketing question. Why and when are all marketing questions. And I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into those. The only 2 that I really believe is advertising questions is where and how. The first point, I believe, in any foundational marketing exercise for anybody's business, and I don't care if someone's just starting out and it's their first week in business, or if they've been in business for 20 years, some people haven't done this. They haven't done this exercise. So even if you're listening to this and you've been in business successfully for 20 years, just still do this, because you might discover, maybe we could pivot here or do something a little bit different. The first point you need to address is, first, know what are you selling? What are you really, really selling? Now, a lot of people might go, well, I know what I'm selling. I'm a DJ. I'm selling my services to turn up and play music. But it's deeper than that. That's not what you're really selling. People don't buy services or products. They buy based on emotion. So what emotion are you selling to your clients, or what emotion are you trying to? A good example of that, and it's always easy to come to cars because everybody knows cars, and when it comes to cars, there's only a few things that people will want to buy on, and that's, safety. Is it a safe car? Maybe is it economy? If they want a car that's really cheap to run around, or is it a luxurious car? See, Mercedes-Benz, they sell cars. We know they sell cars, but that's not what they're marketing. That's not what they are just saying. Hey,
They're
we sell
selling
cars.
luxury. They're selling the extras.
100%. That's exactly right. So yeah, and I think that goes across to the DJ world too. Are you a budget DJ? Are you there for people who are living paycheck to paycheck? They want an event and they want it cheap, and maybe that's your niche. Are you selling luxury? Do you promise to be the, the best? You might turn up in a tuxedo and everything just looks absolutely schmick. Perhaps that's your niche. Perhaps it is safety, and when I say safety with DJ, I mean that guarantee you turn up, we've never let you down, we will be there on time, we guarantee that. Are you selling the comfort for the people? Are you selling the peace of mind so that they can rest easy at night? So it's really, really important, I think, to address the first point is, what is it I'm really selling? And get away from the gear. It's not your gear. You're not selling your gear. You're selling you, if that makes sense.
And it kind of comes back to the conversation where DJs will kind of sell themselves based on the gear that they use. And we see that a lot in the DJ industry, where DJs will, tout their sound system and the equipment. I always tell people that if you can sell on the result and attach an emotion to it, right? Like, especially some of the DJs that are a lot more proactive as far as like a lot of the planning goes, with like communicating with different vendors, that's a real pain point for a client that they can push on, that they can kind of speak to. And I don't know if you saw the document that I uploaded into the DJ marketing school, but I actually uploaded a document, I think like yesterday or 2 days ago. But it's a discovery session sheet, and that sheet and that entire document, going through and filling it out, even just having something written down, it asks you all of those questions, like, what are you selling?
Excellent.
What sets you apart? And it's a really valuable. I go through and I do it once a year, because, well, I've done it twice because I started my business 2 years ago, but I plan to do it once a year because every year, who I am serving is going to be different. So my messaging needs to be different. The way that I speak to them, the way that, my brand looks and feels needs to be a little different based on that specific clientele that I am going after. So I love that you mentioned that.
That's great. I didn't see that document. So it sounds like we're on the same train of thought, which is fantastic. And this video, if you want to download the document and watch this video, hopefully they tie together well, and we're on the same path, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I want to touch on that point too, which I've seen so many times. Inexperienced DJs or even experienced DJs, and this is not one of my 3 points that I'd like to go through, but it's a sub point, is don't sell your gear. Like, I've seen it so many times. And again, I'll come back to the car analogy. Maybe 1 in 100 people who are buying a car are car people. They know cars, they understand how all I have no idea, but there's bits and engine parts, and there's horsepowers and kilowatt, and there's whatever.
The average consumer doesn't care about how many liters the engine is, how much horsepower it has. They care about whether or not it's safe, it's comfortable, and they like it, essentially. If it looks cool, I guess, maybe.
Exactly. And even there, it depends. If I'm going for a car, if the car salesperson is telling me, hey, this car it's got 500 horsepower and it's got so many gigawatts of influx capacity. I don't know what cars are, but I'm hearing white noise. It means nothing to me. But if he instead took the time to go, what's important to you? I go, well, I've got a wife and kids. It's safety. I'm happy to sacrifice economy and luxury if I know it's safe. Now, that might be completely different to somebody else. If they take the time to find out what is important to you, they might find that, economy, mate, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I'm happy to sacrifice safety and luxury for economy. And somebody else might want luxury, whatever it is. So it's really important to make sure that you find out, well, what is it that you want? And your service might not match that person. There's no point somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck looking for a car and the salesperson's just trying to hammer them in on a Mercedes. It's not going to happen. So your business,
person,
you need to know who you are, what you're selling for a start, and then later on we get to your who is the big one too. So yes, don't sell your equipment. In fact, I don't even mention my equipment. People don't ask. Unless they ask, don't even tell. They assume that you are using quality equipment. And if you start telling them that you're using 1,000-watt speaker and it's got such and such a range with kilohertz, and they white noise.
As long as it works, it's what you do with it, right? And we kind of hear that a lot. It's not about what you have, it's what you can do with it.
Exactly. So sell you, don't sell your gear. The second point of the marketing foundational things that I thought about was the why. And the why is, why are you different? Why are you different to somebody else? First up, you now know what you're selling. I'm selling on comfort. I'm selling on economy. I'm selling whatever that is. But why are you different? Because you're probably not the only DJ in your area, even once you know what you're selling, that is selling that same thing.
Yeah.
So what makes you different? What's your point of difference? And when I say point of difference, I'm not talking about I've got a purple laser. Like, who cares? The other person will then go out and buy a purple laser. There's a celebrant here in Australia, and she's very, very proud that her point of difference is that she uses a pen with a feather on it for the signing of the documents. It's not really a point of difference. Anybody can get a pen with a feather on it. It's like, I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Wow, yeah, that's different. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Doesn't make
And
a
some
difference, but
DJs, you know, kind of going back to that, there's always a point of differentiation with any DJ in any market, because even if a DJ is just kind of starting out and he's kind of on the budget end, right? You're cheaper than some of the other guys. But then you also have the guys on the opposite spectrum that maybe are charging a lot more, and they're, what makes them different is the fact that, you know, maybe they have good relationships with a lot of the vendors. They have a lot of professional relationships. Maybe they communicate with a lot of those vendors beforehand and touch base with them. And because I know a lot of DJs and master of ceremonies that also, even though they aren't a wedding planner, they also kind of fill the role as a wedding planner, you know? So that's a massive point to kind of make them different. And there's always something.
absolutely, yeah, that's it. Exactly. You can say, look, why am I different? Well, I actually help you plan your event. You know, unlike maybe some of my competition who just pretty much just say, well, send me a list of your songs and I'll turn up and play them. If that's something you do, let them know that you will be there to help them plan it. You'll help them assist the run sheet, whatever that might be. It might be awards. You know, why are you different? Well, I've won some awards. I've got some backing. Or it might be your reviews. Why am I different? Well, check out my reviews. You know, they're better than XYZ companies or whatever that might be. Or at this point, people might go, well, I'm not different. I'm the same as everybody else. Well, find a difference, create a difference, learn a new skill, do something to make you unique and different, and not necessarily make more money because of that skill. Like, I don't charge more because I do some close-up magic. It's just a value add, but it makes me different, and it's something that the
Makes you
clients
stand
like.
out is what it does. So especially if you have an idea who your ideal client is and who you want to be working with, or even who you are trying to message to, it allows you the opportunity to connect with them, especially like online or on a website or just by seeing one of your social media posts, without you actually having to have that conversation with them, you know?
Yeah,
And I think that's a big part of it. And I know some DJs that are freaking hella good mixers. You know, they're great at mixing, they're great at programming that music, even though they aren't doing a lot of the planning stuff. They still know how to do some awesome transitions and just kind of keep the floor going. And there's always something that can make somebody different.
the next point, the third one that I thought about was the who, and that is, once you know your first point, once you've got that answered, you know what you are actually selling and on what emotion you're selling, why you're different. The third point to come up to then is the who, and that's, and in that order. You can't just go straight to who am I selling to without knowing the why and the what first. But once you do know your what and your why, then it's the who. Who are my target market? Who am I selling to? Who wants to buy this? When you've answered that, your advertising just falls into place so much more easily, I believe. So when I say who, it's not anybody and everybody who's ready to book you. I mean, yeah, sure, you're not going to say no to somebody who's not a perfect match. Well, then again, I like, sometimes I have, you know, sometimes I have. If I feel
That's
like I'm
true.
not a good match, it's good to say, look, I'm not going to serve you well. You know, you'll be much better with somebody else, especially if they're really into a genre of music that I just don't understand. It's like, I don't get this music. I would be standing there playing it, not understanding it, and not transitioning it well. So yes, there are times that you probably don't, but in most instances, you'll take a job from anybody, even if they're not your exact client match. But it's so much better when you do niche down and think, well, who exactly is it that I'm selling to? And we we regularly profile a fictional person who we are marketing to.
You
We
create an
used to have
avatar, a customer avatar.
avatar. Absolutely. And I mean, in detail, man, like it's crazy. We had, I think she was a nurse, you know, her name was Amy. She worked night shifts. Her husband or to be was, you know, an electrical tradie. And he's finished his apprenticeship. He's, you know, in his second year, they're bringing in some pretty decent cash, and they don't get much time together, but when they do, they love to sit and watch Big Bang Theory on Netflix. She drinks coffee black. He has really get down deep and just create this person. And I don't know if it's the law of attraction or what, but when we did that, we were getting nurses, you know, and sometimes I think we had one called Amy, whose partner was a electrician. It's just weird, and I'm not really a spiritual
Well,
person.
it gives you a direction, right? And there was a Russell Brunson book that I was reading, and it was one of his secrets books. I think it was Marketing Secrets. I'll have to take a look. But and he's talking about the customer avatar and how I think it was Mary Kay. It was one of those like makeup companies, right? And basically what they did was in every room that they would have like meetings, they would have a picture of a woman with an entire like profile, and every single person that stepped foot in that office had to know who their ideal customer was, and her name was like Becky or whatever her name was, but they had to know her. And any decisions that they made with the business, whether it was bringing on a new merchandise line, whether it was raising prices, anything like that, they would say, what would Becky think? Would she like this? Would she not like it? And that can be applied to literally everything. And I think ultimately it gives you direction because you can think about that person and think, does this help them? Does this hurt them? Is it going to improve their experience working with me if I implement this new idea or do this new thing, you know? And a lot of times that's all we need to just be able to commit to something and not just think about it and actually take that action and do something.
And I guess it's shifting the focus away from me, what's in it for me, to what's in it for them. What does the customer think if I did this? What would the customer think? And your avatar might change, you know, like ours has. You know, we've gone through a probably more affluent market than what Amy and Brendan or whatever his name was, the other avatar. You know, we've gone probably for the higher demographics now again, and that's okay. Like you can change your avatar, and you just have to change.
Let me ask you this: when you started Nik Nat Entertainment, was that something that was on your radar? Was that something you did when you started the company, or was that something that you'd kind of enacted later on that you just kind of realized boosted the results as far as the marketing efforts that you were making in your business?
These things I think I did not intentionally. I think I sort of did them by accident. And now, sort of years later, I went, these are the things I did, but not because I read a book. And, you know, and Natalie, who that's why we're called Nik Nat Entertainment, because my name's Nick, my wife's name's Natalie, so it's Nik Nat. But that's yeah, that's, I don't think it's something that she either like brought to the table and said, hey, look, here's this book, this is what we need to do. We've done a lot of learning and a lot of things, but it wasn't necessarily these 3 steps laid out for us, given to us on a tablet like we're giving to you today. And download Tony's.
You guys just kind of learned as you went along and kind of implemented some of these things and realized how beneficial they were.
Yeah, look, to be honest, we've thrown and wasted heaps of money on advertising before we probably had proper customer profiles out there or understood what we're actually selling. You know, it's just like, yay, we're DJs. Yay, let's chuck some money into Google ads, and just got clicked away like crazy. Like we've probably spent thousands of dollars over the years that really had a low return on investment because we're targeting everybody, not laser focused and going like, this is what we're selling. This is what we're promising. This is our target market. Let's laser focus in on that. And then you're going to have a much better return on investment. In fact, we don't run ads, and very, very seldom do. I probably never will run any paid advertising again, to be honest. It's just never really worked that well for us. You know, we prefer to market based on, you know, just word of mouth. Yeah, just organically. Yeah.
I like that. Just correct me if I'm wrong here. So we have who, what, why, when, where, and how. Those are kind of the 6 steps, right? I might not have them in the right order. I kind
Yeah,
of
so
wrote them.
no, that's okay. So yeah, number one was what are you selling? Know what you're selling. Number two, why are you different to others? Number three, who is your target market? And the when isn't really a point. The when is when you have those three above done, then move on to the advertising ones, which is where am I advertising and how am I advertising? And that's probably a complete different conversation. And I'm not really an ads guy so much. Like I said, I don't really.
Especially in the world that we live in now that is very internet based, social media based. The when and the where doesn't necessarily have to be paid advertising, right? It could be putting very purposeful effort into building your social media, or maybe ranking higher on Google Maps and being found on Google. There's a lot of things that people can do without necessarily having to pay for that advertising in order to generate that traffic and those leads and having those come in. But then it can also be building like vendor relationships, like with the venue. Maybe you go to a wedding, you do a good job, you communicate well with the venue, you ask them to be on the recommended vendor list, and you kind of begin seeing inquiries coming in from that venue regularly. The when can also apply to a lot of those organic methods, right? Because once you have the what, the why, and the who kind of in place, the when can kind of take care of itself when the moment is right,
Yeah, definitely. No, 100%.
Where do a lot of your leads currently come from, as far as the leads coming in for different weddings and events like that?
Yeah, good question. We do rank really well on Google organically, which is fantastic. We're number one for most of our keywords, which is good. So definitely, that's probably our biggest source of leads. And they're kind of cold leads, though. They're not. When I say cold, I mean they're warm because they've gone to the website. They've obviously expressed interest. I think the warmest ones are the ones of people who have already seen you at someone else's weddings, and I get a few of those. They're like,
Yep.
when you say, well, how did you find out about us? Which is a great question. Always ask that. Don't just assume that they found you on Google, wherever you're advertising. Always ask that question. So how'd you find out about us? Because sometimes the answer is, oh, well, I saw you at my cousin Jeff's wedding. It's like, oh, great. And that's fantastic, because if they've already saw what you do, and if they've seen how you do what you do, they're easier to convert into a sale because they already love what you do. They've seen it. And otherwise they would have went, oh my God, I'm not that guy. Like, let's
This is
steer
what
clear
I
of you.
don't want for my wedding.
Exactly. Exactly. That's right. And I'm sure I get that a lot too.
Well, and I think too that also applies to referrals. That's why referrals can be so powerful, building those relationships with other vendors, because if a vendor that a couple trusts recommends you to them, all of a sudden you don't have to overcome as much of that trust obstacle as you have to with a completely cold lead, right? If someone just goes to your website, they look at the website, there's a lot there that can build that trust with them, but ultimately there's still a lot of work for you to do when you get that lead to establish that trust to convert it to a sale. Where if somebody that they already trust, if they really like the venue manager or the person that they talk to at the venue and they trust them and they're like, this is the guy you need, all of a sudden you don't have to overcome that nearly as much as you would have if they were just reaching out to you on Google.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% right. And really, if you that's a really important word. It's all about trust. For them to put that money across, they need to trust you. And if they don't trust you, you've got no hope. The only hope you've got, if you can't instill trust, is be really, really cheap. And people go like,
Yeah.
I don't really trust him, but he's cheap. So, if he doesn't turn up, he doesn't turn up. So, and that's not a really win for you. It's not a win for anybody. So yeah, work on being trustworthy, on building trust and building that relationship and proving that, if you've got some reviews on Google, it's fantastic. I love the Google reviews because it's real and it's people who have experienced you. And, when they leave glowing reviews on Google or wherever you get your reviews, that's awesome, because that's another great way of instilling trust, because they can read all the past clients and what they've said. And they're like, wow, this sounds great. So that's a great way of
Yep.
building trust as well.
And this is something a lot of people don't know, but 70% of millennials and Gen Zs believe a online review as much as a word of mouth referral from a family member. So
Is that
reading an
right?
online review to like a millennial or a Gen Z or anything like that, it carries a lot more weight, especially with millennials and Gen Z, which is primarily who are getting married and primarily who a lot of us tend to work with for the most part, you know?
That's another thing too. Another massive tip is ask for the review. Don't just leave people to go, you know, if they leave me a review, they leave me a review. Work actively, like send them an email. I always send an email 2 weeks after the wedding, go like, hey guys, it was so awesome. Thank you again so much for having me as your entertainer. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Hey, if you don't mind, if you can, you know, spare just a couple of moments, would you mind leaving me a review so other people can, and put the link in there. It's simple, it's effective, and hey, it works.
Well, and that's one thing I tell a lot of people is a lot of DJs and a lot of business owners in general. I mean, I talk to a lot of business owners who have this insecurity about asking for a review because they have the same mindset you just mentioned. Like, oh, if they like me that much, they'll just be prompted all of a sudden. They'll wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and be like, oh, I need to leave them a review. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Asking for the review is super important, especially if you do a good job. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they will leave you a review if you really like it. And if you could even pre-frame it before, right? So like you said, you know, one thing I do with all of my clients near the end of the night is say, you know, hey, I'm glad you guys had a good time. I'll talk to them at the end of the event, but then say, hey, you know, would you mind if I send you a review link in a couple days? And if you guys have time, leaving me a review, you know? And what a lot of people don't realize is that, especially in the eyes of Google, consistent reviews is one of the main ranking factors. You don't even have to have the best reviews. It doesn't matter if you get like 5 4-star reviews, you know, as long as you are getting consistent reviews, Google looks at that and says, hey, this business is ranking for this specific keyword and people are mentioning it in their reviews and people are leaving them reviews. So we are going to put them above competitor X or competitor Y, whatever it is, you know? So reviews, you know, it's a very inexpensive way. And it's kind of silly to me when I see a lot of business owners that don't take advantage of it and, you know, proactively ask that and not build it into whatever process they have for like working with their clients or couples or whatever it is. I'm speaking widely, not just specifically about DJs, but you know, I think a lot of DJs would benefit by building that in and just having that be a part of what they do when they work with the couple.
100%. And some people too, I think they worry. They're like, oh, what if they leave a bad review? Well, what if they leave a bad review? You know, just if you trust what you're doing and you've honed to what you're doing.
If that's your only review, you have something to worry about. Yeah. But for the most part, you know, especially if you have 20 5-star reviews and 1 1-star review, you're not going to lose any juice with Google over that, over 1-star review. Google still see that as a plus point because you got a consistent review. And most of the couples that see it are going to be like, oh, well, they understand people, right? Like not everybody can be pleased all of the time. So don't let it paralyze you. You know, you should still ask for the reviews consistently, but you could definitely tell that you do, man. I mean, just looking at your Google, you know, and some of the other platforms that you're on, you know, you've got a lot of reviews out there, which is freaking awesome because it's
cool. And not everybody leaves a review, obviously, you know, and you can't expect that. But the ones that do leave a review, usually I believe there's a psychology with leaving a review. It's going to gravitate naturally towards either mostly good or mostly bad, depending on the job you do, because someone who's really pissed off and angry will leave a review because they're really pissed off and angry. Someone who's super happy and is ecstatic will leave a review because they're super happy and ecstatic. The ones where they're like, nah, it's okay, they're not motivated to go, I'm going to leave a review. So you're probably not going to get, you know, too many 4, 3, 2-star reviews, you know, unless you're going to get 1s or 5s mostly. I had one person leave a 1-star review once. It was really funny because, and the reason it's funny is because I didn't do her event. And the reason I didn't do her event is not because I didn't turn up. It's because she was really angry that I wasn't available on her date. Like she made an inquiry. I was available at that point. she messed around and thought and dilly-dalled. And in that meantime, like 3 weeks later, she came back and said, look, yeah, we've decided we'll book you. I said, look, I'm sorry, somebody else has now. Bang, straight to Google, left me a 1-star review. He said, I can't believe this guy. He won't do my wedding. He refuses to do it. I'm like, so anyway, we went through
I'm a one-man show.
yeah, he finally removed it. I said, look, can you see how this isn't fair?
Yeah,
You
no
know?
kidding. That's funny though. Now,
Yeah.
other than a lot of you know, the 6 things you mentioned, the what, why, who, when, where, how, you know, making sure you ask for reviews. Is there anything else as far as some of the things that you have had success with in your business for getting leads and building your business and getting new events?
Most of the other stuff would be probably sales strategies. I mean, you know, we could definitely do another episode if you want to sometime on sales strategies, like actually getting the sale, getting to a yes, building that. But as far as the marketing, that's pretty much about it. You know, it's just I think don't. My biggest piece of advice is don't waste money on advertising until you have these foundations set first. Know your foundations, know what you're selling, know who you're selling to, before you just spend even a single dollar on advertising, because it's just going to get wasted.
Beautiful. Well, I definitely appreciate you jumping on with me, Nick.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I will be posting this into the DJ Marketing School Facebook group probably after Toastmasters, so it should be up and live within the next 3 hours or so.
Yeah, cool.
And yeah, maybe we'll jump back on at some point, talk about sales. I definitely like that idea, because I think for me, when I look at marketing too, I also look at the overall branding and the overall experience. And a lot of that is also the sales process, you know? So, you know, following up and the overall experience that you leave your couples with from the minute that they realize that you are a business until the moment that they do leave you a review. So I definitely think that would be a really good subject to touch on at some point. But
Yeah.
we will end the video here. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.